Hi there, welcome back to my channel. It's James here. I hope you're doing okay. So, short video today, nothing super special, accompanied by my gorgeous, glorious, little bit reticulated up at the top because I've had it in the grow tent. You can kind of see, like, because it's had to be sat right in the center of this, it doesn't have like a nice corner to grow against anymore. So it's getting like full grow light down on the top of it the whole time. But still, it's looking beautiful and it's put out a fair bit of new growth, although they are a little bit smaller, the leaves. But still, I'm happy with it. Video today is going to be completely not about philodendron though, so we're going to talk about Monstera. So I kind of did a top anthurium video, a top philodendron video. Now I'm going to do like my top 7, I think, Monstera that I have here. I really don't have very many Monstera, which is why it's a slightly smaller number. And I've not included in here either of my Monstera Adansonii, the variegated ones, even though I love them. My Monstera Orea, the variegated Adansonii Orea, is growing in this grow tent up against like a plank of wood, and it's just a big deal to take out. And I'm going to be moving within the next 3 weeks, so I kind of just want to do that once because I feel like it is going to be a lot of work. So I'll definitely make some videos around that, whether or not I do any kind of footage of the actual move. I don't know, I think it'll be a little bit too chaotic. But yeah, we're just going to go through some of the Monstera that I have that I really enjoy, and that some of them are doing well, some of them are doing less well, some of them I've had a while, some of them I haven't had for very long at all. So yeah, we're going to start with one of my absolute favourites. This is the Monstera Thai Constellation Sport that I got in a trade sometime last year. It was sort of toward the end of the year, I can't remember exactly when, but it's really lovely, this plant. So if you've seen a Thai Constellation, or if you have a Thai Constellation, you know kind of how the variegation works. It's a sort of splashy constellation-like variegation. The main difference here is that it's kind of that taken to a really sort of an extreme. So if I come all the way in, you can see like there's almost more variegation on the leaf than there is green. I'd say this upper corner is the closest on the plant that looks like a normal Thai constellation. And sort of, it's just really nice. It kind of looks snowy. It's called so this specific mutation, there are going to be tons of mutations coming out of Thai constellation and all plants that are put through tissue culture, I'm sure. But this specific one I think is called a Monstera Platinum. So it's just enough of a change from the typical Thai constellation that it's considered a different plant. But otherwise the care is exactly the same. It's a large form Monstera. When it gets big, it will have those sort of multiple perforations and fenestrations. It will be beautiful. So yeah, it's doing well. It's quite slow. It's very space hungry. Mainly in this one, I can't remember if I changed this pot or not, but I keep lifting it out and like padding more moss around the outside. I can't remember when I changed it from this. Anyway, the roots grow really fast. Same with my other Thai constellation. It kind of stops growing if you don't give it root space. So that's something to think about. But it's really lovely, and I'm sure we're going to see loads and loads more weird kind of mutations like that pop up on the market. This one is a cutting of my Monstera Orea. I have a lot going at the moment because I cut up this plant. This is from the main plant. It's got a growth point coming through, which is exciting. I'm going to show you. But yeah. That's a second Monstera that I really like at the moment. I definitely prefer it to the Albo. Partially novelty, obviously. That's like a slightly shallow answer, I think. Partially because you see it less, so my eye is kind of drawn to it more. I still love my white variegated Monstera, but these definitely take priority in terms of like conditions and stuff. Someone was saying recently that they think the Orea is slower than the Albo, and thinking about it, I think that's true. Just not hugely, but a little bit slower. It makes a difference. This specific cutting doesn't really have very much variegation. I've spoken about this before. This is why I cut this plant. But if you have a plant that has more variegation, you're going to want to just be aware that the yellow will crisp at some point. It seems like it happens even more with the yellow variegation. Okay, we're going to move on to we have one more sort of deliciosa form. This is the large form, so not the Thai constellation, but it is the green variegated Monstera. This leaf you can see really nicely. It's kind of green on green. And this one is less visible, but it's still really variegated if I come in. Like that whole side of the leaf is variegated. It's got a new leaf coming through. I can feel the bump like ready to push. It's very weird, this plant. Like I've tried it in a couple of different substrates, in a couple of different mosses. It's now in live moss. I could probably do with a little bit of wetting, so I'm just going to give it a quick little spray. But it's decided that it doesn't like it very much. It keeps like putting out root growth, and then that root growth will rot off, and then it puts out new root growth. So I'm going to have to take it out of here, but if you can see, all of this black stuff here is roots that have died, and then it's just still putting out like new root growth elsewhere. So I don't really know why that is. I'm definitely not keeping it too wet, like touching it now, it's very, very dry, and that's more or less how I've been keeping it throughout. But if you have any ideas, I don't know whether because it's the large form it wants to be in higher light, or it's in pretty high light again, I'm not sure. I might just have to shift it over to an Aroid mix and see how it does. I've been kind of keeping it in moss because it was a cutting, and I just wanted to give it a chance to kind of fully establish itself, but maybe it's past that point. So that's fine. 3 Oblique types. 2 are pretty new to me. This one is the one I've had the longest. This is the Peruvian Oblique, so the Monstera Oblique Peru. It's doing really well. I have it very low in the grow tent, so it's in super low light. When I had it a little bit higher, it's kind of gone now, but the leaves were getting a little bit yellow. So it's super light sensitive for a Monstera. It's decided to run, so I think maybe I put it in too low light, but that's okay. What I'll do with this probably is I will let it run as long as it wants to go, and then I will either sort of attach it up a moss wall or along a moss surface or something, and then cut off the tip. And I think that will stimulate growth through the nodes. Someone was talking recently about a trade secret. I'm pretty sure that's it. That's what I've heard. Like, if you have a long runner like this, it's just like a plant. If you cut off the tip, it's going to stimulate nodes throughout. So if you get those nodes rooted into something, so if I have this rooted up a wall and then I cut off the tip, then you kind of have activated rooted nodes. Probably not all of them will activate, but we'll see. That's kind of going to be an experiment when the time comes. But yeah, definitely one of the more sort of charismatic Oblique, in my opinion. Really lovely. Second Oblique, this is a super recent one. It's actually been in quarantine for a little while, but I think it's okay. I think it's probably ready to move into the actual grow tent. This is the Monstera Oblique Bolivian form. It has a little crystalline seedling in there that was also quarantining with it. But yeah, it's kind of got the typical Monstera leaves, very like tough, ridged. They're just really lovely. Like, I think this one fenestrates as well when it gets a little bit bigger. It's quite a nondescript plant at this point. A lot of the Oblique are, I think. Like, they start a little bit, like this is just a green plant. And then they kind of become something afterwards. The next one is exactly the same. So this is the Monstera Oblique Amazonas, which I showed pretty recently. It hasn't died, like it's just one leaf here. It lost 2 leaves, and then I cut off 4 nodes because we're going to trade them for something exciting. So I have 3 nodes rooting in moss and 1 in water, and all of them are doing really, really well. And this has decided that it wants to grow, which is good because it lost all of its roots in shipping, but I think you can see there's some roots that are starting to spread into the moss. So that is positive. But this one, yeah, it has a very similar Monstera look, but as the leaves mature and elongate, they kind of get really long, stretched out fenestrations, which is nice. So those 2 are lovely. A little bit, like I said, less sort of charismatic immediately as this one. Like the fenestrations on the Peruvian form appear very, very fast. But yeah, still a special plant to have, and I'm really grateful. This was a gift from a friend, and yeah, super, super happy with it. So the last one we're going to show you is one of the most recent ones. I think I got it just before that Bolivian form, so I've had it, I'm not sure, maybe like a month and a half. This is the Monstera Belmox Flame. So it is a very, very gorgeous Monstera. If you've seen it, it kind of has that kind of spidery of leaves with really curved fenestrations. I'll put a picture up of. This plant was one that had a little bit of a struggle, so I got this imported from Europe, and there were no issues with the import documentation or anything like that, but for some reason it got stuck in customs for like 2.5 weeks, and then it took another almost a week to get here. So it was in the post for over 3 weeks, and it started out with 5 leaves, so same number of leaves it has here, but it lost 2 of them, and this one here is kind of stabilized. I was sure this was going to go, but I think it's okay because the roots really, really managed to catch up. They're doing, I mean, I don't know if you can see, but they're doing just so, so well. Chunky, chunky, chunky roots. And it put out these 2 leaves here in the space of about 3.5 weeks. So it's actually growing pretty quickly now that it's established, which is surprising because from what everyone was saying, I was expecting it to be like a very, very slow plant. This is not only mine, unfortunately. I wish it was, but it's not. It's a shared plant, so at some point soon I'm going to have to cut it up once it's sort of shown that it's established and happy, and send some leaves off to their new homes. But I'm very excited to be able to grow this, and hopefully I'll be able to play around with a couple of cuttings and see what conditions they love and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a very exciting plant of this year. Okay, that is it. That is just my top 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Monstera. But I would have my Orea Adansonia in here as well, but it's too big to move at the moment, so I'm not going to do that. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you want to see updates on all of these plants, check out my Instagram @slugplants. I post there pretty regularly. And if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, and comment down below what your favorite Monstera are. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.